eventually you go in few skills, you do go to the College of Winterhold because there's a fence there. So that's when she's gonna, realize, oh crap, I have magic and whatever. Hi, Tony. And I'm ranting about my character.
I see.
But I'll hi everyone, welcome to the Semi-Bookish podcast. I'll just start it right then and there.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It has been a while.
It has a hiatus, some might say.
An unfortunate not really unfortunate.
Just an just a
Lots of stuff going on.
Words, vomit,
stuff. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that happened. There was holidays. People called in sick. I had my entire top half of my jaw shaved off and moved.
There is that.
So I couldn't talk at all.
By a surgeon, not by an accident
Some random
of misfortune.
No, I took a hammer to my jaw by myself.
It was scheduled and planned.
Do what you gotta do.
I stayed in a hospital.
Yeah, right, indeed. Yes.
So we're back, and we are coming back in strong with... not the topic that I'm going to talk about yet, but we're going to talk about what we're reading what's entertaining us.
Yes, would you like to start?
Me? Sure.
Yeah.
I'm playing Skyrim, because of course I am. It's been how many years has it been since it's come out?
Came out in 2011, so it's been 14 years.
We're at the 14th. Jesus Christ.
Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
I'm playing... I started a brand new character, based off of Helena Targaryen from House of the Dragon, by accident, because I was reading House of the Dragon fanfiction. And I went, what if I just did this? And so I did.
Nice.
And she's an alchemist enchanting build. That's her two main things. Which is very different from me because I normally don't focus on those because those are those are ones you don't really focus on at all.
No. But it makes sense if you start out knowing that because you're just going to collect differently and those depend so much on how much you have in your store. Yeah. And
so what I did was so she technically her and her cousin, it's one of my companions in the game, lives in Riverwood, and she went to go collect ingredients, and so she didn't get in with the Helgen stuff initially, in the sense that she wasn't a prisoner. She was collecting stuff around the area. She sees the dragon, and she goes, oh, dragon!
As you would.
Goes and checks out the town, and everybody's decimated and dead because dragon.
And the city's on fire.
Yeah. And so that's how she gets involved with that. The idea behind it is I'm trying to do new skills that I don't normally do.
Right.
So smithing, enchanting, alchemy.
Yeah.
Two-handed.
I love doing two-handed.
Right now she's doing the bow and arrow, but that's just because that's just what she had in her inventory when she spawned.
Right.
And I'm trying to find a good weapon for her. I'm debating between the battle axe and a greatsword for her.
Oh, sure.
But obviously because she's going to be a thief, that's not going to be her main thing.
Yeah.
I'm waiting till I get more conjuration, magic and skill, because when she gets to a certain level, it'll be easier for her, but I'm going to get the conjure battle axe spell.
Nice, yeah.
So then she can have that, and she doesn't have to carry that extra weight while she's running around and thieving.
Exactly, yeah. That is really nice to have.
And I'm also going to try pickpocket and try to up my skill in that.
Yeah.
Because that's one I never touch, ever.
It's fun to put stuff in people's pockets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's where I'm going.
not as much fun to take them out because if you get caught, which I always do.
So that's kind of where I'm going with it. Right now she's running around with her cousin, who is actually just an NPC from a mod that I've just decided is her cousin because he was there and a free follower to run around with.
Yeah.
And there was, we were running around in, right after you get done with Bleak Falls Barrow, you can find that lady's cabin. Do you know the secret about her cabin?
That's down the mountain from it or something?
Do you know the secret about her cabin?
I've only been in there once, I think. I can't remember.
So if you go see her...
Isn't there a hag raven in there or something?
No. But close.
Okay.
If you go down into the basement of her cabin, and you read the notes, she has a hag raven as a sister.
Oh.
And she's trying to convince another, like their niece or something, to become a hag with them.
Yes. Okay.
And if you go down in the basement, and I normally use this as a great time to steal literally everything down in that basement because it's all free stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you leave the basement, she immediately attacks you on sight.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
There's like a little mod that I have that includes like 2 random companions. They don't fight, but they can just follow you around and they're cute.
Yeah.
So I have a giant mushroom following me around, a giant white cap. And then
does it have eyes and stuff, or is it just literally a giant mushroom?
It's just a giant mushroom that has legs.
All right.
Follows you around.
Okay.
And then I have a chicken, a fluffy chicken, and then Lydia, and then this guy. And I feel like it just fits Helena very well as a character of just having these random things follow you around, and you're just like, yeah, why not?
Forget the Fellowship of the Ring. I mean,
And so that's what I'm entertaining myself with.
Chickens and shrooms. You know.
Yeah, pretty much. Tony.
It does actually.
Yeah.
Me. Okay, so I'm Alright. My reading regimen is actually more interesting than anything else right now. I decided to take 2 people's advice. One is a poet named Terrence Hayes, who said at the National Book Awards this year that if you want to know what's happening in a modern American poetry, like of the moment, like contemporary American poetry, you would do best to start with the long list of the National Book Award, which is 10 books. So, he said, read those 10 collections, read them every year. And then he said the convincing thing, which was, this is my practice. Now, I've read Terrence Hayes. I know how genius he is. And I'm like, okay, if a genius like Terrence Hayes as a poet, if that's his practice as a poet, done. I can do that as a novelist. So I'm currently reading, I know the name of the book. I will not pronounce the author's name correctly because I'm just absolutely horrible at this kind of thing. But I am reading The True Story of Raja the Gullible, which actually was the winner this year of the National Book Award for fiction. It is, The True Story of Raja the Gullible and His Mother. That's the subtitle, or parenthetical, by Rabi Alameddine. I'm saying that wrong, I know I am. I have to look that up at some point. But anyway, it's interesting so far. I'm not really very far into it so far, but it's what it says on the tin. It's about a man's relationship with his mother, and he starts out in the book in 2023, and he's an older gay man. So I've read the first section, and then the next section, it's the date is from 2001 to 2021. So that's interesting, that huge span of time. So I haven't really broken into that yet, but I will soon. The other person's advice that I'm taking is Ray Bradbury, who in a very old interview said that he always tells people who want to write to spend 2 years every single night doing the same thing before you go to bed. Read one essay from any discipline. It can be literature, it can be biology, it can be whatever it is. Just read philosophy, whatever. It can just read an essay, read one poem, and read one short story every night before you go to bed. And at the end of 2 years, your brain will be full of so much stuff that you will write on instinct, because your brain is full of stuff that
it just has to get out.
It just has to get out, exactly. So I thought, I can do that too. So every night is tricky because it's a new habit forming, so I have to give myself time. But yeah, I've been reading the stories of Brian Washington from his debut collection, Lot Stories. It's literally the title. Every time I read Brian Washington, I am so in awe that I'm not angry at him anymore. Also, he's a gay black man, so I'm definitely not mad at him for being accomplished in his field. But he has this really unbelievable ability, and I think it's just because he trusts the reader, whoever that person might be. He trusts the process of reading so deeply that he doesn't need to tell you a lot. Like, there's no heavy description. He just is putting it down on the page as it is right before you. and that's it. Sometimes he uses dialogue tags, other times he doesn't, and it doesn't actually matter because when you read a Brian Washington story or chapter, you are bringing everything that you can to fill in all of the spaces that he just will not fill in. And what looks like a lazy writer is actually the very opposite. He is so heavily invested in the craft and in not getting in your way, your imagination's way, that he can make... There's a story in that, I think it's the 10th one in that collection. I can't remember what it's called. It is literally 3 pages of like run-on paragraphs in which an entire neighborhood of kids who all played baseball at the same lot. It's not the story called Lot, but anyway, it tells you in each sentence where they all end up. And that's it. It's almost stream of consciousness in the way that stream of consciousness can be without being in first person. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's the whole thing. But it's so moving because you're putting all of your own names, or, all of your own faces and associations and emotions right in there with it. So each reader will have such a different experience of that story, and that's what makes it fascinating. He's brilliant. I am also reading an essay collection by Melissa Phoebos called Body Work, in which she basically tears all the writing rules apart, the ones that tell us not to write our own, access our own memories, She just tears that all down, and she's brilliant. She's really good. And I'm also reading a poetry collection by someone who's becoming a very favorite, Jericho Brown. I read his poetry collection last year called The Tradition, and I am currently reading the New Testament, which if you look at that cover, it's a Tony cover. It's like, yeah, that book is for Tony because it's, 2 black men, one is shaving the other. And it's just this very beautifully intimate portrait, and it's like, yeah, that's me, and it's called the New Testament. Come on, this is a book for me. But he's just a brilliant poet, and so reading one of his poems is like, I read them all aloud, because I read to children aloud, so I figure I can read aloud to myself. So I read aloud, and I read the poems 3 times in a row, just because poems are shorter, and reading Jericho Brown 3 times in a row is just healing. As weird as it is, he just puts these words down and you read them and you're like, what? I'm watching... Oh, well, yeah, okay, I'm watching My Hero again because I'm always watching My Hero, honestly. And plus, I finally get to start watching the final season.
Is it out yet? Or
So 9 of the 13 promised episodes are out. 8, I believe, of them are dubbed, so I can start now. And by the time... If I don't binge it, it should all be done.
Don't binge it.
Because I want the ending. I want the whole thing.
Enjoy the last of this.
I'm so excited. And once it's all out, I'm finishing my Blu-ray collection because it's one of my very favorite stories. I want to always be watching My Hero because it's just wonderful and amazing.
It's a very lovely story.
It's really well done. I read someone online said, I think it was Comic Book Resource, which never trust anything they say, but they were right about this. They said, the thing that makes My Hero as wonderful as it is not because he's inventing anything new. It's because he knows exactly the kind of story he's telling, and he's telling it as best as he can possibly tell it. And that just makes it so exciting to be engaged with someone who just is doing the absolute best that they can do. And Kohei Horikoshi at his best is just pretty good. I mean, 10 years of that story plus, the anime that's being, it's amazing. And then I can watch Vigilantes afterwards, which I'm really excited about.
Find it interesting, especially with My Hero, is from what I remember, one of the movies is technically supposed to be the canon end.
Yeah, so the movies are hilarious because they take place in this like alternate universe where the kids can just do whatever they want for the movie. Because if you look at the timeline that they give you for this is when it happens between this year, and you're like, no, it doesn't, because Bakugo doesn't even have that power yet. Like,
the funniest part is
it's ridiculous.
One of the movies was legitimately supposed to be like the end.
I think it was the 4th? Was it the 3rd or the 4th?
It's the one where Izuku gives the power to Bakugo or whatever, and they share it.
It's the 3rd one. Yes.
That's supposed to technically be the canon end, or it was.
Of the show proper, not just this offshoot? Okay.
Just like that was supposed to be his canon end from what I remember. But Shonen Jump did not want it to end. Like, because My Hero was kind of like their cash cow.
For a while.
And it is, still technically.
Yeah.
But Shonen Jump didn't want that to happen, and so Horikoshi had to continue writing up until this end.
Interesting. Because
So,
you wouldn't be able to tell.
but the thing is,
That's funny.
because Tony's going to get to that point, when you watch the end of My Hero, then go back and look at the end of that movie and see the similarities, because it's kind of similar, but he basically had to rewrite that entire movie to make more sense.
I could see that, yeah. It's interesting, too, because he's not involved in the movies at all.
No.
Which is why I'm just like, well, yeah, that's an alternative canon, which I enjoy. I have no issue.
Granted, all of the other artists are, like, drawing Bakugo and Deku ships and posting them on Twitter. So if that doesn't tell you anything about, like, how they really feel about things, I don't know what does.
Yeah, which is great. And I love that he really loves his artists, like the ones that help him with all of this. And so he literally will draw, like, at the end of each of the Tankobon volumes, he'll draw, like, little sketches of who they might be if they were My Hero characters, and then he has little, like, names that he writes around them, and he's had to, like, say, like, no, guys, my friends are not actually perverts, but that's just how we talk to each other because we're still teenagers.
I'm very interested to see what he does after.
Me too.
Like, he deserves a break. Like, now that it's done, he deserves the break wholeheartedly, but I'm very interested to see
where he goes.
What type of show, like, what type of anime he does.
Well, he said in an interview earlier this year, yes, I'm that kind of nerd, he said that his hope is to draw someone else's writing, but when he approached Shonen Jump, they said no. No, we want another original from you. So he's like, so I don't think I'm going to be able to get away with what I really want to do, but I like writing and drawing. My Hero was fun. I'll do it again, you know. So I like that he's gotten his chance because his first couple didn't do very well. His second one I really liked, but I could see, you know, it didn't have legs. It was Prince and the Pauper in space. You can't really do a whole lot with that, but I think My Hero was a stroke of genius and a lightning strike for someone who really just wanted to do this. He's a brilliant artist. I think he could have gone on to do, like, brilliant portraiture and other things, but it's very clear that this is where his passion and his heart is, and I want, you know, I'm an artist. I want artists to be happy when they do their work, even if it stresses them out. Because it's hard. So, and then I'm just playing Arkham Origins again because it's close to Christmas, and Arkham Origins is Christmas Eve. So, why not?
Die Hard's a Christmas movie. Arkham Origins is a Christmas game.
It is. It literally is Batman. It's literally Batman on Christmas Eve. Black Mask has hired 13 top-level assassins to murder Batman. And so you go through each assassin, you know, and it's Christmas Eve. You know, the time clock is fake, but still, it's fun. You know, you get to take down all these assassins like Lady Shiva and...
You mean the lady who trained...
Slade Wilson.
You mean the lady who trained Tim?
Yeah, I love Lady Shiva. I can't stand Deathstroke. Slade Wilson could jump off a cliff.
It's on site for Slade.
I can't.
It's on site.
He's the one with the mask, right?
Yeah, he's the one that for some reason feels like he has to kill every Robin because that's going to wound Batman. And it's like, do you know Batman, my guy? There is no wounding him. Joker tried that card already. It's called Jason Todd. Like, come on.
No, I'm like Nightwing. I see Slade. It's on site.
Yeah, Titans did a really cool thing with that, but we're gonna let Grant tell us what he's being entertained by because we could go on forever.
You're really good at this one.
Yes.
Well, I've seen a bunch of movies, honestly. I mean, it's been a while since we've done our last episode,
that's true.
But well, I'll start at the most recent, I guess. And it's also probably the one I like the most.
Ooh.
So, this is a Czech movie. It came out in 1967, directed by a man whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. It's really, really difficult. But the movie is called Marketa Lazarova. It's based on a book of the same name, which I have not read. Can't speak to the quality or how much this differs from it. But it's It's 3 hours long.
Wow.
It's I would call it an experimental historical epic, which I don't think anybody who's seen it would have much to argue with. I think that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
So it follows multiple characters. Well, first of all, it takes place in medieval times, basically.
Oh, fun.
Medieval Czechoslovakia. So you follow multiple characters, some German, some Czech. There is a big conflict between neighboring, kind of holds, and a larger conflict between paganism and Christianity. With some characters representing, the Christian side, some representing the pagan side. The titular character, Marketa, she's a younger girl. Her father's a Christian, but he's also kind of a thief.
Fun.
Yeah. And, one thing leads to another. She has been promised to the nunnery, basically, even though her father can't really pay to, because I guess at that time he had to, pay to send your daughter to become a nun or whatever.
Oh, sure.
But, long story short, that does not go well. She does not end up as a nun. She ends up in the possession of a barbarian clan, basically.
Oh.
And that sets into motion a whole series of events. What I find really interesting about this is a few things. Just visually, it's incredible. Just really beautiful black and white cinematography. From the instant I started watching it, it reminded me of a newer film called Hard to Be a God.
Oh.
Which technically is a sci-fi movie, and so technically it's in the future. But it's on a planet where they're basically in their medieval age.
Gotcha.
And they're all, played by humans, so, it very much feels like you're in medieval times. And having seen this, I think it got maybe more than a little inspiration from this.
Sure. Yeah.
Even the cinematography, because in Marketa, often it'll switch to a first-person point of view where you're just walking through this scene, and it really, really places you in the time and place. Beyond that, it's a very surreal movie at times, which is unusual for a historical epic because usually it's like a point by point.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that these aren't, as far as I know, these aren't real historical people.
Right, as far as we know, yeah.
Yeah.
Surprise! Guess what they are?
It's the best historical fiction is when you make up all the people.
Yeah.
In my view.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
There are some really dreamlike sequences. They have some fun with editing. The film itself is split up into chapters with a title card that kind of explains what's about to happen.
Oh, that's cool.
All of the events that led to blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But they're usually not told in a straightforward way. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. You'll start at the end basically with somebody kind of, you're not sure what they're ruminating about, but you keep going back to a previous event. It's just really interesting how it's set up. Not to stay on this for too long, but it was voted the greatest Czech film of all time by Czech critics. So that piqued my interest.
Yeah.
I definitely didn't expect how weird and wonderful it was going to be, which I definitely vibed with. So
yeah,
I really liked that. I've watched so much stuff.
It's been a month?
It has been a month.
I didn't know. Now that he said that, I'm oh yeah, that movie I watched that I really love. That I've literally seen 6 times since I watched it. It's can't stop.
I was also recently introduced to the cinema of Miklos Jansko, who's a Hungarian dude.
Yeah.
His movies are a lot more political.
Nice.
They're also historical, specifically focused on Hungarian history and stuff. Sure. And at the time he was making stuff, he was under the Soviet, Hungary was under the control of the Soviet Union, and there's a lot of censorship and stuff, and so the way he would get money is, he would pitch it as like a patriotic, historical novel of, or historical film of, whatever. But really, it's all allegory for what's going on at the time, largely.
Because dictators don't understand satire because they're stupid. Hint, hint, the dictator of this country. But anyway,
hey,
had to get in a shot.
Of course, I understand. Honestly, I've watched 2 of his films, The Red and the White and The Roundup.
Oh.
Very beautiful movies in a similar way to Marquetta. These came out later, so they're a little more refined.
Sure.
But he is known for his long takes. I think The Red and the White has like 20-something shots in the entire movie, which really, really works. Just, just the amount of choreography and everything that had to go into that and planning, it's really impressive.
Yeah.
Both are really bleak anti-war films when you get down to it.
Yeah.
I think you got a pass with The Roundup just because of how oblique, and I think you'd have to dig to find the subversive elements, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But The Red and the White is much more brazen, I feel like, in its politics, and I think he had trouble getting funding after that, if my reading is correct. Yeah, both very good. Honestly, very close in quality.
Mm-hmm.
The Roundup, more so, it's much more condensed.
Mm-hmm.
It takes place in one location, basically a prison camp.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And there's really no main protagonist or anything. You drift from person to person, following their, experiences, and as they're forced to, betray their ideals, either to survive or to just kind of get ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, both great, beautifully shot movies.
Yeah.
Definitely they both can be rough.
Sure.
Bleak, but definitely worth a watch.
Nice.
I want to watch the rest of his filmography. He was a good find.
Yeah.
I did see Rental Family with Brendan Fraser.
How was that?
It was fun.
Oh,
it was fun. Very wholesome.
Yeah.
I had a day off, and I randomly decided to go to the theater, and
why not?
That was playing. I love Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, he's a good egg.
Yeah. He is a good egg. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
From George of the Jungle to now. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, really quick, it follows... I guess it's a real thing in Japan where you can pay. I'm sure it's not super widespread, but there are businesses where you can pay somebody to act as either a family member or.
Oh, that's actually a big thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it
that's a
is.
big thing.
Yes, especially now because one of the things that they're finding with the globalization of the planet essentially is that if you are a young college educated Japanese person, you don't have to stay in Japan. You can move to England. You can move to America. You can go anywhere and do your job because you have the degree that carries you internationally. And there's still such a huge honor culture that the idea of the young leaving the old behind is still, it's like they're in culture shock. So what do? They create a cultural element to smooth that over.
I think it also...
which is brilliant,
so,
actually.
it does that too, but I think it's also really cool for people who come in from, out of their own country and live in Japan. Their family members aren't there either, and so there's that culture of, well, if this is something I can access, I can have somebody be my brother for a day, be my mom for a day. Mom, I need to go wedding dress shopping in Japan. Can you come with me?
It's the same culture that created convenience stores, like the real ones that have food for people who don't cook.
Do you ever watch the convenience store TikToks?
No, because if I did, I would become savagely violent. Because I don't live there, and I want to.
Because some of them are so cool, and I love them, and it makes me want to live in, New York or something with the little bodegas. So I could go to bodegas.
Bodegas,
You know what I mean?
Bodegas are cool.
Like, just let me do something like that. Let us have some delis. Let's bring that back to the Midwest.
If you are an Adrian listener, I want a convenience store and I want a bodega. And I want them downtown. Okay.
Please.
My request has been heard. Get on it.
Do you know what I want to talk about now?
George Bataille?
Sure. Explain this whole entire thing to me, because I read this while I was on painkillers.
Maybe the best or worst
I retained absolutely nothing. And my brain just read this and I just went,
So, a full disclosure, before we get to what we're discussing, I have read this small selection. I read the introduction because I first started with just like, I was going to read like the short essays, whatever, the shortest ones first, and then sort of tackle the longer ones. But after reading the first one, I was like, I need to know what I'm reading here. So I went back and read the introduction because he tells you essentially what the project is. And that helped me kind of frame everything. So I'm still going to like read all of it at some point because it's short. But I could feel my brain literally stretching, and I have not slept well enough for this lately. So I have questions, but what are we discussing?
Before we do this, we should probably preface this by saying that this is the final and part of our continuation of the nonfiction picks that we read.
Yes.
This is Grant's pick, ironically enough. And Grant likes to pick stuff that makes my brain explode.
I'm sorry.
Grant, I need you to explain
Which is
this book.
great. We love that.
So, Grant, what did you pick and why did you pick it?
Yes.
Okay. So, I picked Theory of Religion, written by George Bataille, who some brief... Takai, yeah. That would be a very different book, I'm sure.
Not to be confused with...
Yes, also, you guys can't see this, but least haunted philosopher.
Oh, he does actually look kind of not haunted, but...
I'm joking. He looks haunted to me.
Does he? Oh, okay.
But hey,
he looks like he's seen some stuff.
I may find haunted faces attractive because young Tolkien has a haunted World War I face. And
I
I
haven't
find him
seen
rather...
many pictures of young Tolkien.
He's
pretty.
He's a fine-looking man, yeah.
He's pretty.
Yeah. You can't convince me that things weren't going on in his trench. That's all I'm saying. The trench warfare, people.
I was going to say, is that a euphemism?
It could be, but we're not going there. It's just a family-friendly podcast.
Here's a vibe.
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, see? All right, we all agree. Yes, so Bataille.
Yes, Bataille. He's a Frenchie. He was born in 1897. He's a philosopher, general intellectual, fiction writer, pornographer.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Librarian.
Oh.
Yeah. Medieval librarian. Which...
I have questions.
Yeah. No, he's a very interesting person. He's somebody who I would say has a lot of like silent influence on culture, where like he had a big impact on artists of the time and that came later. He also had a big influence on like post-structuralism, postmodernism, in ways that I probably couldn't entirely explain that well.
Well,
but
that's fair.
I know that many have
the postmodernists.
Well, yes. I'm working on it.
Good. Yes.
He, for example, like Hellraiser, Clive Barker's Hellraiser, pretty openly pulls a lot from his kind of darker philosophy. The first time I was introduced to him, probably knowingly, was a few years ago. I was reading a nasty little book called Amygdalatropolis.
Okay.
I believe. I mentioned it on the podcast at the time.
Okay.
I didn't mention the introduction, which talks about Bataille pretty extensively.
Actually, you might have.
Did I?
I think so.
Maybe I did.
Yeah.
But that's the first time I'd like seen his name connected with like his thought,
Gotcha.
together.
Yeah.
And it was definitely fascinating because it talked about like his connection with the mystics and stuff. Because he was an avowed atheist,
That's believable.
He did come up with a system that he referred to as like atheology, which I'm not the most knowledgeable about because I haven't read where he talks directly about that. But, just a really interesting dude. I got Erotism, which is still probably my favorite book of his. Which if in a perfect world I would have had you guys read that, but We try to keep this PG.
Yeah, so
13.
would not have been discussable.
Yes. But without getting too deeply into it, he deals a lot with transgression, taboos, the dynamics of those in society, and how people try to transcend, their situation through,
Eroticism,
right. which he uses that as a very broad term. He would consider like religious ecstasy eroticism. It's something that.
Ooh, I wonder how much Anne Rice read George Bataille.
Maybe she did.
Because she would frequently talk about that, and that's where a lot of the erotic elements in all of her work just kind of comes from. That same kind of philosophy, really. And she was well read. Interesting. Carry on.
Yeah, no. And I was just going to say, and he would define eroticism broadly as a distinctly human activity that, it's a non-useful expenditure of energy.
See, romantic girlies, George Bataille accepts you. You keep reading those hot fairy books. No, I mean that seriously, honestly. I don't even mean that as a joke.
They should just call the section Hot Fairy Books. It'd be fun.
They should, right? Hot fairy books should be a genre. It is, but anyway.
I mean, that's what romantasy is, so you know.
Yeah. That's how HBO should bill heated rivalry. George Bataille approves.
And so erotism and this, I would say, are probably his most lucid works that I've read.
Okay.
Where he more or less tries to like put a systematic spin on his usual stuff, because he did start out amongst the surrealists.
That's believable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which even in his most like theoretical works, you definitely still get that feeling in his writing style. Which I know you were curious about, like why he writes the way he writes.
Yeah, because the introduction to Theory of Religion, what I found really interesting was in the introduction, he makes clear without being clear, which is fascinating because I'm like, how does that work?
He always operates in that liminal state where.
But once you say surrealism, I'm like, yep, ding, that makes so much sense, because surrealist writers have that same. I've not read much of surrealist writers. I can't even name one. But any bits of surrealism that I've read, like little short stuff, they have that same quality to them, just from a style perspective, which is like, I see what you're saying. Oh God, what is the guy that you tasked us to read fiction? Burroughs.
Burroughs.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Burroughs. Why did you say it? It's interesting to sort of pick all that apart. But what I loved about the introduction for Theory of Religion is basically he's saying, or he makes clear at one point, he says, there is no philosophy that just comes out of nowhere. That's not philosophy.
It's part of an assemblage.
Yeah, and so it relaxed me, because I was like, oh, this book is short. It's broken down into little sections, so it's kind of, he's got all of that going. But
and
also,
it was published posthumously, just so you know.
Ah, that's good to know, too, because it kind of lets me know, like, oh, well, he's not trying to... He doesn't expect me to get it all. That's the whole point, is that, like, I can't unless I've read literally every philosopher on the planet. Good. Okay, I can just relax now, and if my brain hurts, well, it hurts because I don't understand something, but I can move on and not stress out,
Yeah, and I just find it fun, honestly. And, even with somebody who is, like, willfully obtuse, either from, like, coming from, like, an elitist perspective or, I don't know. It can still be stimulating, and it's just fun to go through their thought. How they get from one point to another, and it's just fun.
So, Theory of Religion, why this one in particular?
It was short, it wasn't erotism. And also, I'm very interested in religion. I'm not. I wouldn't consider myself a religious person, but I'm fascinated with religion. Like right now, I'm reading a book by a guy named Walter Burkert called "Creation of the Sacred." It's basically him.
That name,
he's known for like Greek history and stuff. And it's basically him trying to tie biology, like primate biology, to like early religions and stuff, and trying to find traces and stuff.
Yeah, so actually that's really interesting, since the book is called Theory of Religion, and I only know. I'm fascinated by. I was just thinking about this the other day. The word, theism in and of itself is Well, actually, I was breaking down the word atheism because it's kind of an oxymoron. You know, it's like without theism or opposed to it or something, you know, because if you're apolitical, for example, which is another oxymoron. No one's apolitical. Sorry to burst your bubbles, people. But what's interesting about atheism is that it's almost anti-human. Calm down, atheists. Take a breath. I used to be one of you.
I mean, Nietzsche would call it anti-life.
In a way, it is because, and here's why I kind of my own preliminary thinkings on this was basically like, well, what I love so much about religion in general, not the the systems or the churches or the temples or the art or the any of the beautiful or the songs, any of the beauties and cruelties that come with that. That's just human beings, right? I mean, you could say that about nations of all kinds. You could say that about governments of all kinds, leaders of all kinds. We haven't gotten it right yet, clearly. But what's interesting about theism, religion, the belief of all of that, is there's no real way to determine where it comes from except us. Mm-hmm. And because it continues to come from us and we continue to recreate, modify, justify, whatever, across all cultures, everywhere, no matter where you go, there's some theistic thing, basis of belief, from the tribal to the imperial.
You really won't find a society without some form of
so
religion.
I have a sort of phrase in my mind that I use over and over again when I think about these things. I always say that religion is as human as breathing, because it is, and that I am not someone who I don't subscribe to any specific one because I don't subscribe to all of them because that's not me, but it's ridiculous almost to just be like, well, none of it matters. Like, really?
I think it's another mode of thinking.
Yeah.
Religious thinking.
Because, if you say none of it matters, there goes Michelangelo. There goes the music of John Rutter. There goes, anything.
I love John Rutter.
Thank you. Any aspect of society, what you end up being left with if you say, let's throw all of the religions out completely, thoroughly. Well, what you end up left with is what? And then what you end up left with is a bunch of people who are going to construct another religion. If the pasta spaghetti people on the internet are anything to talk,
I think it's a human impulse, basically.
It is, yeah. Even if it's stupid, pasta internet people, sorry. It's still, it's an impulse. We need it. I don't know why we need it. That's the more interesting question.
I've read some interesting explanations.
What are Bataille's explanations, do you think?
So the way he frames this, I find really interesting. It's almost like a long fall of humanity from what he would call or I'm trying to remember how he would word it. Undifferentiated. What is the gosh darn word he uses? But he uses animality as as an example,
sure.
Where there's no, at least to him, animal specialists I'm sure would disagree, and this was written in the early 1900s, but
yes,
where there's not really a me, them, I object distinction. And to him, humanity begins when that distinction begins, with the creation of tools almost, where you can posit, where you could posit an item as an other, and I am me. And that for him, that's also where human hierarchy starts and where religion starts.
It's where sexism starts.
It's where sexism starts, yeah. And as he traces, from basically the beginning of humanity to industrialized society with capitalism and everything, he draws a clear line between this original, what I almost see as his original sin, plucking it from the tree of knowledge or whatever.
Yeah.
That is the positing of self and other, and that on one hand it allows people to have consciousness and think and be people, but also it cuts us away from this immanence of animality and kind of sets us down this path where we're more and more alienated from ourselves or our original essence, or however you want to put it.
Yeah.
And I just thought he did it in a really poetic fun way, to me anyways.
Yeah. A lot of thinkers around this will use the term individuality and sort of say that, but there was a time period when we were all more community-minded, more communal. You look at the tribe and how tribal cultures all over the world that had no idea that, they knew there were tribes up the river, but they had no idea that, if you're a tribal group in Africa, and the nearest tribe is literally up the river a good step from you, maybe across a wood or a bush or whatever. Yeah, you know about them because you share a river. You have no idea that there are Americas, let alone people who live in the Americas. The Inuit have no idea that the Algonquin exist, for example. This is not... And none of them know about, the people that we refer to as the Vikings. They're just not... Until they do. But the point is, until you start to see conquest happening, these people just are not aware of each other. And yet, if you study all of their tribal cultures, you find strange commonalities. And one of the commonalities you find is that tribal cultures the individual does not exist. But you're not reduced. You have a role. And that is what you do because of who you were born to or because of which lineage or all of whatever that is. And it's to further the tribe. I remember reading about, I believe it was Southeast Asian tribes, and I can't remember which island it was. It might have been, it's one that starts with a P, and I can't remember.
Polynesian?
It might have been a Polynesian. Yeah, I was reading about this long, 10 years or more ago. I was reading, and what fascinated me was they had a whole system, this particular group of tribes, had a whole system for what to do with what we would call child molesters in our society. And what they would do is that they would remove the person from the society. They would say, you cannot be here amongst the people anymore because you have violated the sanctity of the tribe. So they would distance them, make sure they had a home, so they would build them a home, make sure that they had a liaison from the tribe whose role it was. And this was them creating it whole cloth. So they created this, because the problem existed, now they create this new role. And this person is responsible for once a month, or whatever the time period is, going out there, risking the wild, risking everything, going out there to ensure that this person was still eating, that this person was still drinking, that this person had company for a certain period of time, and obviously this person could not be a child. This had to be a fully grown person, so that this other person's aberration that caused them to create the problem. Now, this is all without psychologists, philosophers. This is all just on-the-ground tribal culture at work here. And I remember reading that and thinking, that is unbelievably human. And yet, I've seen that idea reflected in African tribes, in Native tribes, in the United States, in so many other tribal cultures, that it's fascinating to recognize that. But if you look at the tribe's literal opposite, the empire, state of mind, one might call it, it's completely different. We have to have a literal, and that's one of the things I read. There's one of his sections in there. Is sort of breaking down imperialism. I'm sure there's more than just one, but the one that I read that I found really interesting, basically he's saying, the empire does not exist without essentializing itself. It doesn't, and that's where all the systems come from.
I think he calls it I forget the exact term, but it's a completely self-contained, encompassing system.
Yes, exactly. And that is what its danger is that it is not actually important to us, and we know that it's not, but that's the sermon it preaches over and over again. So and that's why the systems have to continue to permutate, because without all of those systems, which are, by the way, inessential, everything would crack. Think of the way we talk about systems now in this country. I remember a few weeks ago when the Department of Education was caved in by the current administration, I said to people, isn't that interesting? You just get rid of the entire Department of Education. there's no standard anymore. How are schools going to operate? I guess they have to operate on the state level, right? And someone said to me...
Or private level.
Yeah, someone said to me, without a question in their mind, they said, oh, no, they'll replace it. They have to replace it.
With
exactly.
a Department of Education.
I looked at them like they had grown 5 heads, and I'm like, this is empire at work. You are so used to a system that even when you have someone bashing the systems down like a baby in a daycare who's not being told no, you really think that same baby is going to replace it with another system? That's not how babies work. That's...
And Bataille's whole...
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I'm watching Tony's face.
No, it was very interesting. No, very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you for coming to Tony's TED Talk.
And part of what Bataille talks about with like the rise of industrialization and stuff, and militarization is previously, and this is where sacrifice comes into the mix, because sacrifice plays a huge part in pretty much all of his philosophy. Whether if he's specifically talking about religion or economics or whatever, because in his view, in previous iterations of society, or we would burn up resources, energy, blah blah blah, however you want to put it, in sacrifice. And another purpose of sacrifice was to, going back to like his idea of imminence. Through death, you're depersonalized. Everybody who's witnessing the sacrifice is depersonalized. And sacrifice is not just human sacrifice,
right?
But sacrificing of resources and stuff. To him, it's he has a much more reasoned argument for this than I can give you guys. But it's a way to reconnect with this lost intimacy, basically. And as we became more quote unquote humane, we sacrificed less, and the violence that was contained within must necessarily go out, and thus become, then militarization becomes an end of its own.
That reminds me of something that, and we can close on this note, I suppose. But I was watching because I do this, I was watching a sort of talk that Toni Morrison, she wasn't giving the talk, but she was part of it. It was a conversation between her and another scholar at one of her alma maters, and she said something that really I may have heard her say this before, but this time it sort of struck me, and I went, oh. They were talking about PTSD and how soldiers who return from war, that's a huge part of returning from war is PTSD, because you're not living in that trauma anymore. So now you're living in a post-trauma. So you have to, it's going to come out in the ways it comes out. But she made an interesting point. She said, yeah, but don't you worry about the ones who don't come back with PTSD? And the audience went dead still. And she's like, no, think about this. You go over there, you do what you do because you're a soldier, you're in war. You should, if you're a human being, you should come back with PTSD. You literally have lived in trauma and committed trauma. That's what you have done. Regardless of whose orders, regardless of all the pain, whatever. She's like, but the ones who come back who aren't traumatized, who don't have PTSD, yeah, those are the ones we should worry about. You can just go and pop a whole bunch of people with AK-40 whatever and bombs and whatever, and
if you're not affected in any way.
That's a whole other psychosis that's happening that I don't think we examine very much in our society, because there's not a system in place. Don't get me started. You gave us George Bataille, but still, I could go on and on about systems and how horrible they are for humanity, but
No, and
who listens to me?
as we raise it. I know you people in radio.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, is this going to be our last episode before Christmas?
It is not.
No.
Okay.
Actually,
The week before.
We're gonna have
the Tuesday right before.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday right before.
Tuesday right before Christmas. Oh, that's exciting.
AKA your episode.
My other episode, yes.
Rick gets 2 episodes.
Yes. Yay. Yes, that'll be fun, actually.
Yes.
That was
without spoiling what it
lackluster.
is, I'm very excited for the next episode because it's one of my favorite pieces of media.
Yes.
Period.
Who blanks the blank? And that is not an innuendo.
Blanks the blank. It can be, but not in this case.
Not in this case. No. If you know that, if you know the answer to that, read along with us.
But yeah, in conclusion, I would say Bataille is definitely a very interesting and iconoclastic thinker, especially
Yeah.
considering the time in which he was writing.
Which would have been when? Like, what was his, like, high point?
I want to say, maybe like 40s.
Okay, that's not right, yeah.
30s, 40s. Like I said, this was published after he died. If I'm not mistaken, he was pretty much done,
Sure.
more or less,
Yeah.
with that. But yeah, so 30s, 40s, that period. He lived until the early 60s, I want to say.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely would have been iconoclastic with the popular sort of ideas that were heading around, because that was sort of the let's make empire even more empire, you know. On the one hand, the UK is literally hemorrhaging empire all over the place. Germany's trying to take over the world. Italy's trying to take over the
and he definitely shares with like the modernists in general a tepidness, like a very cautious. He had mixed feelings on industrialization and stuff like that, obviously.
Yeah.
The modernizing of the human.
They were onto something, those modernists. Yeah.